Well, hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We're doing the show a day early because I will be recording an interview for another podcast tomorrow afternoon when I normally record this show. So, hey, hope you're doing well. So, let's get to episode 85 of Mike in the Midwest. Let's get everything set here. Can you tell I've been watching the Olympics? All right. Okay, here we go. Let's do this. Episode 85 already of this little booger. Here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 85 of Mike in the West, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Today is Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. And I hope this show finds you well. Yes, we're doing the show a day early. It's hitting your feed a day early. And I hope you're doing great. I am recording the podcast one day early because I will be guesting on another podcast tomorrow afternoon when I typically record this show. So I want to get it out there so that you had the podcast in a timely fashion hitting your feed so you didn't miss out. And so that's why we're here a bit early. And I hope you are, again, doing great. It has been wonderful here in Missouri, here in St. Peters in St. Charles County, just west of St. Louis, Missouri. A lot different than this time last week. Last week, we were talking about the impending blizzard that was coming our way. And yes, we did get hit with about 11 inches of snow. It was great. The girls got 3 snow days last week. They got off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And again, I always kind of give you the update on what's been going on here in our household since the last time we talked. So it's been 6 days. We had that concern that we had the big cheerleading competition in Schaumburg, Illinois, a suburb north and west of Chicago. And we were worried if we would actually be able to get out of our subdivision to get up to the competition. And it was a little bit hairy getting out of our subdivision. We had a lot of snow plowed up on the streets, and it wasn't the greatest conditions to get out of the subdivision. But we did leave on Friday, and once we got to the highways, we were in pretty good shape. So it's about a 5-hour drive from St. Louis, from where we are in St. Charles County, to Schaumburg, Illinois. And we were able to get out, get to the highways. And once we got to the highways, pretty good. It was pretty nice. We didn't have to worry about too much, except for central Illinois. There was a stretch between, I think it was Springfield, Illinois, and Bloomington, where the highways got a little sketchy for just a little bit, but we were totally fine. Got up there in about 5.5 hours. Had a fun weekend in Schaumburg, Illinois, with the cheerleading squad. I am happy to report that Mallory's squad did win their division again, level 2 there, small cheer squads, and got another national championship in the CSG category. So we are excited for that, and we'll actually be back in Schaumburg, Illinois, come the first weekend of March, because there's another competition in this same venue. And we're going to be competing in that one. That'll be our last competition before we head down to Walt Disney World for the summit, which is at the end of April, which we're very excited for. Everybody's making their plans. Yes, we're staying off-site again. Boo. But it'll be a fun trip nonetheless. We'll be down there at the end of April, competing at the arena at ESPN Wide World of Sports. And it's always a good time to be had down there. So this weekend, again, we did go to Schaumburg. I'll just kind of give you a little feedback on what we did up there. So we stayed in a hotel called the Renaissance, a very nice hotel. It was attached to the convention center. So if you're a Disney fan, obviously, right? So this would be like staying at a hotel like Coronado Springs, or say a yacht club, or a Contemporary, where you don't even have to go outside to go to the venue where the competitions take place. And if you've never been to an all-star cheer competition, I had no idea what these things were all about. So basically what it is, they have these big convention halls. If you've ever been to like an RV show or a car show or a boat show, they have these gigantic ballrooms in these convention centers. And during these cheer competitions, they can have simultaneous competitions going on, well, obviously simultaneously at the same time. So you may be in, I forget, they called it like a Discovery Hall, or imagination hall. It's kind of sounded like a Disney thing at this place because all their ballrooms had these cool kind of Epcot-y type names. And so you would go in, you would check the schedule, and okay, so it depended on what, you'd look to see, like, because they were going on at the same time. You would see, like, okay, Mallory's squad was cheering, at 112 in this ballroom. And then you could go over and see, because we had about 9 or 10 different teams at our gym that would be competing at different times. You would cheer on the other gyms, and it was just kind of fun. So this competition was a smaller one. It only had two at the same time. I mentioned we went to Indianapolis to this thing called Jam Fest back in January. There was like 6 or 7 simultaneous competitions going at the same time. It was a nut house. It was crazy. This only had 2. But this hotel was really nice. It did remind us of the Contemporary. It kind of had that same architecture. Now, it wasn't as big as the Contemporary. There was no monorail. But right outside of our room, as soon as we checked in, Mallory looked down out of our room. We were on the 11th floor, and it almost looked like there was a monorail beam, like right outside of our window. And I'll have to tweet out a picture, maybe put it here in the Patreon. It did. It looked like a monorail beam that just ended. It was crazy. It did look very much like the Contemporary with the monorail beam right outside our window. So we stayed there, very nice hotel room. Didn't have to go outside to go to the venue for all the competitions. So let's talk about where we ate over the weekend. We had some good eats up in Schaumburg. This is why I'm excited to go back at the first weekend of March. We ate at Giordanos Pizza, which is first time I'd ever been to Giordanos Pizza. People had told me when I was up in Chicago to run the marathon back in October, got to go to Giordano's. And here's the thing. I had heard about Giordano's because I know a lot of folks go there when they go to Disney. I know a lot of folks that have cars, that drive, that rent cars, drive off site, because I believe there's one of these pizzerias right off property. But I'd never had it. I know it's a Chicago style pizza. So we went there. Actually, what we did was we got there on Friday around 5 o'clock, and we knew we would be staying there obviously till Sunday evening throughout the competition. And it was just all these people checking at the same time for this competition. And it was freezing cold when we got there. I mean, just freezing cold. And so we had this car full of cheerleading stuff and our, clothes and all of our suitcases and stuff. So we valeted the car, and they took the car, we unloaded it real quick, dragged our stuff in, checked in, and we didn't know where they took the car, right? Because we are just trying to get checked in. We were kind of running a little bit late. We were getting in. And so come Friday night, we were hungry. We wanted to go get something to eat. And I saw, I looked on Yelp and I found Giordano's. Everybody talks about it at Disney. I was kind of in the mood for a pizza. So we said, okay, let's just go down. I told Pam, let's go down and get Giordano's Pizza. We were with one of the other cheer moms. And so we go down, we're getting ready to get our car, and we find one of the bellmen down there by the valet stand. We're like, we just need our car so we can drive. It's down the road. It's real close. It's within a mile of the hotel. We're going to go to Giordano's Pizza. He's like, oh, good call. Giordano's Pizza, super good. He's like this Italian guy. Loved him. Albert was his name. He's like, you know what? You don't even need your car. I'm like, what are you talking about? On Yelp, it's like a mile away. It's close, but it's a mile away, and it's super cold tonight. He's like, you don't need your car. He's like, I'll take you. I'm like, what do you mean you'll take us? He's like, no worries. I'll go get the shuttle van for the hotel. So he goes and gets, Albert does, this bellman, goes and gets this van that's like, if you go to the airport and you park at one of those satellite lots, that's what I do at Lambert, the cheapest lot that there is, the $7 lot, I call it. And you jump in the little, the little van, and it's kind of like a church van, and they get you in and they drive you over to the terminal. Well, that's what he had. He had one of those for this hotel. So we jumped in with Albert. It was just us. It was just my wife, myself, and Marla, one of the other cheer moms. And he's like, yeah, we'll go to Giordano's. I know the people at Giordano's. I take people there all the time. So he drives us over. And he's like, when we get there, he's like, I'll do you one better. He's like, I'll take you guys in. I'll get you a free appetizer, because they know me. I'm like, this guy, he's killing me. Is this for real, or is he like totally messing with us? So he walks us in, and he tells them that we're special guests. And so we go in, boom, we didn't even have to wait for a table. They gave us a table right away, a booth. And so we're sitting there, and he leaves, and I saw that they slipped him like a Diet Coke bottle or Coke Zero bottle. I don't know what it was. It was a bottle of soda. And he takes off, he leaves. He gives us his phone number when we're done. He's like, when you're paying your check, give me a call. We'll come pick you up. I'm like, this is pretty cool. So we get ready, we sit down, we get ready to order our pizza. Again, these are this big Chicago style deep dish pizza is really good. It's a chain, but it's really good pizza. It's not as good as Gino's East, which I had in Chicago a couple times. Oh, so good. But it takes like 45 minutes for them to cook the pizza, but it's worth it. Anyway, when the waitress comes over to take our order, she's like, "Were you guys with Albert?" I'm like, "Heck yeah, we're with Albert. You guys get a free appetizer." It was for real. So we got a free cheesy bread with our the long story, but it was kind of funny. So we had that. Another thing that is famous up in Schaumburg that they have is a place called Portillo's, which is kind of like a 50s type place where I think it started out as a hot dog stand, but they're famous for like their Italian roast beef sandwiches. I got a Chicago style dog that means it has all kinds of like vegetables and stuff on top of it with cheese fries, and they have chocolate cake shakes. Really, really good place, but it has like this 50s diner kind of vibe to it on the inside. So we had that as well for lunch the next day. So if you ever go to Schaumburg, I recommend Portillo's, you gotta go there, and there's one of those they just opened right outside of Disney, so if you're ever down at Walt Disney World, you can drive right off a property, two of the newest places you can go, and it's a quick service place, like, it's counter service. You just go up, place your order, and sit down. Super good. Oh my gosh, so good, and it's not very expensive. So go to Portillo's. Also, right outside of Disney, there's the world's biggest White Castle, which we have in St. Louis. We didn't eat there up there. I don't think they had them there, but when you're at Disney, if you've never had a White Castle, get some sliders. Your body will hate you, but you will love them eating them. They're so good. But the other place we had was Uncle Julio's, which is a good Mexican place. We had that Saturday night right outside. It's connected to their mall. I think it's called the Woodfield Mall. So we ate well. We won a national championship, and we came home. So it was a great, successful weekend in Schaumburg, Illinois. Can't wait to go back here in about 3 weeks. So I'm already planning out my meals. That's how we do it cheer weekends. Anyways, that's what's been going on. It's been about 60 the last couple of days here in St. Louis. That's how it happens. A foot of snow, then it gets to be 60. So right now it's a soggy mess. We had 11 inches of snow. It's kind of all melted. I think we're down to about, I think the National Weather Service right down the street said it's about there's about 2 inches left on the ground. I took Riley out to walk. Most of the paths, the snow has melted off the paths. It's still in the grass. It is just a soggy mess right now. But that's kind of where we are in the weather. That's what's been happening. I just talked to my dad. He, of course, is going to be doing the radio for the Super Bowl on Sunday. He is driving his little mini van that he has, like it's a white van with no windows, like a minivan style, real small. He's driving from St. Louis to Los Angeles because obviously this is the last game of the year. He will be bringing back all of his gear after this game. So he needs to do that because he doesn't want to fly it, because he doesn't want it to get damaged. He also doesn't want to pay $700 to ship all the gear back. He's kind of cheap like me. I spoke with him. He is 100 miles away from Amarillo, Texas, as we talked this afternoon. He was excited that he just passed through Oklahoma, where there was a part of the state that had an 80-mile-per-hour speed limit. And my dad is like me. He packed some snacks. He said he was having some cookies. He had some cereal in the van, but he did stop for McDonald's for lunch on the way to LA. So when you think about the Super Bowl this Sunday, as you're having great food, which we will, there's no cheerleading this weekend. We're going to have a Super Bowl party, if you call it that. We're going to watch the big game with my brother and sister-in-law and my nephew. That's the extent of our Super Bowl party. We'll probably get some wings and watch the game. That's about it. But as you're watching that, you think how glamorous everything is in Los Angeles. Remember, my dad from St. Charles, Missouri, is engineering that game for the Rams radio network, which will be heard all around the world. But he's just driving his little van from St. Louis to California right now. And he'll be driving home after the game on Monday with all of his gear, eating Famous Amos cookies, eating Cheerios out of a bag, and packing sandwiches in his van. So it's not all as glamorous as you might think. He's not flying in a private jet. He's driving a 10-year-old cargo van, basically mini cargo van, so he can get his gear home. So that's how we roll in Missouri. We work hard. We're very blue collar. We're not all LA and Hollywood. So that's my dad cruising through the great American Southwest as we speak right now. So there he is. And we'll see who wins. He says that he told me this yesterday. We don't know if this will happen. He thinks if the Rams win the Super Bowl on Sunday, they will give him a Super Bowl ring, because they typically do give the broadcast team a Super Bowl ring. He's a part of the broadcast team. We'll see. We'll see. He's not getting his hopes up, but he thinks he might get a Super Bowl ring. But I mean, first things first, the Rams would have to win, which again, if you know me, it would kill me to see the Rams win the Super Bowl. I hate the Rams because they left St. Louis. So I'm kind of a Bengals fan Sunday, but I mean, I'm also my dad's kid, so I want to see him happy too. So anyway, we will see how Sunday goes. I'd love to hear how you're celebrating the Super Bowl. So put that in the comments, patreon.com/Be Our Guest Podcast. Speaking of that, let's talk about the comments from last week's show. Last week, we talked about smells that take you back. You smell something, boom, you're instantly transported to your childhood or to another place in time. I talked about examples of smelling blacktop on a summer afternoon takes me back to Six Flags as a kid, or freshly cut grass takes me back to tournaments, baseball tournaments at Wee Hop baseball fields when I was a kid. A lot of us as Disney fans, you smell musty water, boom, it's Pirates of the Caribbean. An unpleasant smell takes us back to one of our most favorite places on the planet, Walt Disney World. It's weird how that happens. Michael Corbett jumped in here on patreon.com/Be Our Guest Podcast and gave us some feedback. And he says, here in Utah, we'll never have another snow day. The districts have decided that since we all know now how to teach virtually, that a snow day is now a thing of the past. It's now an online day. Bummer. However, in 33 and a half years of teaching, I can only remember 4, maybe 5 snow days anyway. We did or would have had one last month, but it turned into an online day. By the way, maybe 60% of my students actually did that lesson that I posted. Michael, so we were talking about snow days last week too, because we were getting all excited because the snow was falling as I was recording. Here's the thing about in here in Missouri. It is very interesting. We are in this transitional period right now. Mallory's district and Pam's, my wife's districts, did take traditional snow days on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They said they were going to use 3 snow days and let the kids play. And the kids did play. You should have seen the TV. So many human interest stories of people sledding, people shoveling snow for neighbors. And that's kind of a rite of childhood, right? I mean, at least in my generation, in St. Louis, Missouri, a snow day is kind of a revered thing. It was an excitable thing, not only for the teachers, more for the teachers, but for the kids growing up. You got excited. You got to get out there and have fun when it snowed. And I know that as we've moved through the pandemic and we've moved through, these socially distanced times, that we've had to learn how to, teach remotely, teach through Zoom, distance learning and stuff like that. And that allows us now to preclude snow days. But it was interesting because as these, okay, you want me to show my age? Here's how we found out about snow days when I was a kid. And I am not kidding. And again, this is one of the reasons why I love podcasting and I love AM radio still to this day. I love talk radio. Whenever there was a chance of snow and you would wake up in the morning, now this is when I was a student and I went to a private Christian school from 2nd to 6th grade. They told us if we were going to have a snow day, tune into 1120 KMOX, News Talk 1120, because they were the news station. And they did the news at the top of the hour. They would have the national news at the top of the hour. And then at like 06, they would do the local news. So the top of the hour news the national news would take 6 minutes, and then they would hit the local news. And then what they would do is at like 5:06, 6:06, 7:06, they would do the school closings. And so this is how it worked back then. It wasn't on TV. It wasn't on the internet because the internet didn't exist when I was a kid. They would just read the school closings alphabetically. Now I went to North County Christian School. So you know how long it took to get to the ends when I was a kid? So you'd be like, oh my gosh, All Saints. And there were so many Catholic schools in St. Louis. And then you go, Althoff was a city, a school district, and you go to Bethalto and Belleville, and it just took forever. Alton, all these districts. I mean, like, and the thing was, like, you would get up super early because you were so excited, you get up and try to listen to the 5:06 report. You know what happened sometimes? You'd fall asleep by the time they got to the ends. It happened to be more than once, but that's how you heard. Then you have to tune back in at 6:06. But that's how we listened back then. But the funniest thing is that as you watch now, as the school districts scroll along the morning news shows on the TV, and usually they start about 4 now, is that it was about 50-50. Some school districts just would say closed. So St. Francis Howell, for example, that's where we live. That's where Mallory goes. It would just say closed, traditional snow day. Ferguson Florissant School District, where my wife teaches, where I used to teach, closed, traditional school day. But then you would see Hazelwood School District, where I graduated from, where my wife graduated from, distance learning day. You know what? If I was a kid, I would have been or as a teacher, I'd have even been worse. If I would have seen the neighboring school district get a traditional snow day, and then I had to do a distance learning day in the exact same weather conditions, I'd have been fired up. Let me just say. That was like a punch in the gut. Like if you would have had a distance learning day instead of a snow day, your superintendent just gave you a punch in the gut is what that was. I'm not kidding. That's not cool. So yeah, snow days are revered around here, and that was just not cool. All right, back to the feedback. Christine Ball, thank you so much for being a patron. I appreciate it so much. Just, hey, Mike, your topic about smells from our childhood triggered a few memories for me. That was the goal. I'm glad it did. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, our Sears store in the mall had a snack stand that sold popcorn, hot dog, and icy drinks. And ICEE is what she called them. And that's exactly what they were. My dad often went to the Sears for tools, so I'd usually go along and hope for a snack. The store smelled like popcorn as soon as you entered. The other place that popcorn smell reminds me of is a bowling alley. My parents were in a league with their church, so was my dad. And so they would bring me and my sister along each Sunday night. That's when I went too, instead of getting a babysitter. They'd give us 6 quarters each to spend on the games in the arcade when they bowled. Oh my gosh, my parents did the exact same at Dick Weber Lanes. The quarters didn't really last us too long, so we'd try to find more on the floor and in the games around the arcade. After they had bowled their first game, we were allowed to get popcorn at the snack stand, so we were always keeping our eyes on their game. Great memories that I haven't thought of in years. I hadn't thought of that either. I actually bowled in a school league after school on Mondays at Crest Bowl, and that's, by the way, while we were bowling in that league, that's when Ozzie Smith hit his home run against the Dodgers off Todd Niedenfuer, where Jack Buck, made the call. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. We were bowling when that happened. The games were on all the TVs at the bowling alley. I will never forget that day. Anyway, though, my dad bowled in the church league on Sunday nights, Dick Weber Lanes. We hung out in the arcade. That's exactly what we did as well. I don't think we ate popcorn, though, too much, though. I just remember the bowling alley smelling like feet. So did the skating rink. I worked in a lot of places that smelled like feet. Michelle Camber, my good friend down in South Florida, says, hey, Mike, I have a few smells from my childhood that always take me back. One is fresh cut grass. Reminds me of running around in the neighborhood after school until dark. The smell of grass and the sound of sprinklers takes me back to that time. I love that sound in the summer. The other two smells that take me back are ones that most people dislike: gasoline and a horse barn. My family owned a gas station, and I'd spend a lot of time down there. As a kid, I'd sometimes go to work with my dad, and he'd pay me to organize his toolbox. Then in high school, I even worked there for a time. The smell of gas and other gas station smells, probably why I like the smell of the Tomorrowland Speedway. Okay, let me just tell you this. Paige, since the time she was like 6, my oldest daughter, who's like now 26, 25, I don't know, she's old. She has always loved the smell of gas. Like when we go to get gas, like when we're like 6 or 7 and we pump the gas in the car, she's like, I love that smell. We're always like, what's wrong with you? she, like when we're cutting the grass, like putting gas into the mower. She's like, oh, I love that smell. Like I'd spill it. I was like, what is wrong with you? What's wrong with you, Paige? Like, don't smell it. It's going to hurt your brain. Anyway, that's Paige, and she's unique. And apparently I love that Michelle had a reason, though. They owned a gas station. Paige was just strange. And she still is, but I love her to death. Michelle continues. The horse smell comes from spending time at a barn with my aunt, who is more like a sister and helping her take care of the horses. Another great topic. Should do one about sounds that take you back too. And we will definitely do that. Michelle, like that. Also, wanted to mention that frozen iguanas are definitely a thing down here in South Florida. They're all over the place. Had to be careful walking under those trees because they will fall out. You got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. You gotta be joking. Oh my gosh, I thought that was just a meme. Oh my gosh. I guess living in paradise has its dangers. Frozen iguanas. Frozen iguanas sounds like a drink you would have on a cruise. Not a real danger in January in South Florida, but it is, I guess. So thanks, Michelle. I can always count on you. That was great feedback. Thanks so much. I love it. You made me laugh. It's great. All right. So today's topic, I just wanted to hit this real quick. Something I was thinking about the other day. And again, this came up because when we were driving to Schaumburg, again, I did that whole story, that whole show about that one intersection of Interstate 270 and New Halls Ferry Road, which if you don't live in St. Louis, it means absolutely nothing to you, but how many cool things were at that intersection. We were driving past another place. It was Interstate 270 in Limburg Boulevard, which is where on that intersection, when I was growing up, I spent so much time there because, and you might have had one of these where you grew up, we had a Putt-Putt Golf Center. Now, I'm not talking about like a knockoff. I'm talking about an official Putt-Putt franchise. So if you remember, this was a huge thing in the 70s and early 80s. If it was an official Putt-Putt center, it had like the big sign that said PUTT-PUTT. Um, I don't know if they were all the same size, but they had kind of an aesthetic to them. So the Putt-Putt, obviously this was mini golf basically, and it was a fun center. So it had a lot more to it. We'll talk about that in a second, but our Putt-Putt had, so it had this aesthetic where the kind of the frame of all the golf holes, the mini golf holes were orange, and they would have kind of an angled kind of entry to the golf holes, and it would tell the number of the hole on the one side, and it would say the par, like was it a par two or a par three, how many shots you had to get it into the hole. And the hazards were typically painted orange. In the obviously the green was kind of the carpet or the astroturf, the artificial grass that you would putt on the playing surface. And they would have rocks and stuff, and they would have these little stands where you would put your scorecard so you could write your score, these little, little orange stands and so forth. And back then they had little cigarette trays where you could put your cigarette out. I mean, this was again the 70s and 80s. Now, again, our Putt-Putt center had 4 18-hole courses. It was a big complex. My grandpa, for some reason, knew the owners of this place. The lady that owned it, her name was Elsie, and her son was always there working. His name was Joe. I have no idea how my grandpa, looking back on this, my grandpa passed away in 2001. I loved my grandpa. But looking back, I never really knew why my grandpa knew the owners of this place. Maybe they went to our church. I don't know. I have no idea how he knew these people, but my grandpa would take myself up there, my sister, he would take my cousins. He would always take us up to Putt-Putt. And when my grandpa took us, it was awesome because here's the deal. When Joe was there, and he was always there, Elsie's son, or if Elsie was there, we got to do anything we wanted at Putt-Putt for free. Now, let me tell you about what our Putt-Putt had besides 4 courses of putting. And I liked playing golf. I like Putt-Putt. That was fun. But as like a 9-year-old, that was the least of the things I wanted to do at our Putt-Putt Golf Center. Because let me tell you what else our Putt-Putt Golf Center had. Besides the 4 18-hole golf courses, which were fun because they had like water hazards, they had little obstacles and so forth. They were fun. And you could look them up online. I just love the aesthetic. If you're talking 70s and 80s, the aesthetic of a Putt-Putt Golf Center, it just, I mean, it takes you back instantly to a certain time and place, at least for me, because I spent a lot of time there. But our Putt-Putt Golf Center also had batting cages. Again, if you know me, I played a ton of baseball as a kid, a ton of baseball. And it had both softball and baseball batting cages. And it had, if you've ever been to a batting cage, it had the Iron Mike type pitching machines. And if you don't know what that means, that's the arm that would come over the top, simulating kind of like a pitching arm, like an arm, like a pitcher does, like a shoulder. the difference between the two kind of pitching machines you would normally have, an iron mic is the one that just looks like an arm, and it would just throw it. The other one's called a jugs machine, has the two wheels, and you feed the balls in, and it. The jugs machines is what we had in high school, and you have to kind of feed them one by one. Those things are more wild. You can make actually because with the two wheels, you can make one wheel spin faster than the other. It can make a ball curve, but they can also get you killed a lot easier than an iron mic. The iron mic machines were more reliable, and the iron mic machines can typically throw harder than a jugs machine accurately, consistently. So this putt putt center had batting cages, and they had about, I think I want to say about 10 machines that would like 10 pitching machines. So there were a lot of cages. And I just remember as a kid, my dad would take me up there. My grandpa would take me up there and they would just go back and just turn the machine on and I could hit balls until the balls ran out. I mean, I would hit until I had batting gloves, but I mean, I would hit until like I couldn't even pick up my arms. And this is one of the reasons I am not kidding why I think that I was a pretty decent hitter in high school is because I spent so much time in the batting cages at putt putt and it was such an advantage because again, kids nowadays have a lot of opportunities to hit in batting cages. There weren't a lot of batting cages around in the 80s and the late 70s. And I was hitting all the time. And so that really, really helped me out. And I loved it. And I would hit in the, I would hit the one that was going pretty fast. There was one that threw, they say the one threw 90 miles an hour. I don't know if it did. When I was a kid, I didn't go in there very much because that thing scared me. I mean, because you would hear the ball come in, like you would literally hit, and it hit that back like tarp. It would come in. I mean, I'd try to bunt it and stuff. And eventually, as I got older, I could, put the ball in play. But I mean, that thing scared the crap out of me because I think it was coming in like super fast and it was pretty consistent. Like, but if if it hit you, it'd kill you. So I got to tell you this one story about the batting cage with my friend Ryan. One of the most funny stories ever in the history of the world because my dad was there and my dad still tells this story to this day of one of the funniest things that ever happened. So my friend Ryan, okay. So I played at Wee Hop baseball fields, baseball, which was more competitive than the CYC league. The CYC league was it was called Catholic Youth Council. It was like the Catholic school baseball league. They were really good at soccer. The Catholic school league they had the best soccer teams, but they were not good at baseball. Whenever we played a CYC team in baseball, we'd kill them. One of the reasons was even from the time we were 7, we used a real baseball playing baseball. In CYC, they used like a sponge baseball until they got to be like 12. So most of the kids in CYC were scared of a real baseball. Like they did not want to get hit with a real baseball. We were used to it. It hurt, but it didn't kill you. You got a kid batting in CYC with a real baseball. They were scared to death of getting drilled with a real baseball. We'd been hit a bunch of times. Anyway, my buddy across the street, Ryan, I grew up with, best friend, we did all these things together. We went so he played CYC baseball for Sacred Heart. I played on these real competitive teams at Wee Hop, Corey League. So we're just like screwing around or messing around. We go up to the batting cages and as kids, I think we're like 11 or 10, 12, something like that. We're just, we're not really like doing anything. We need something to do. We went to the batting cages. So we go up there. He brings his bat. I bring my bat. We're hitting baseballs. My dad takes us up there. We're in one of the machines that's throwing pretty hard. It's not one of the easy cheesy machines. It's a decent pumping machine. We get in there. I hit a few. He gets in there and he hits a few. So he goes in there and I remember this is so funny. And I know you're like, get to the point. So my friend Ryan, who was pretty good at baseball, but he just, again, didn't play as competitively as I did. Poor guy. He squares to bunt. Okay. So he bunts, but the ball comes up and he fouls it off under his chin. We have on helmets. He fouls it on under his chin. So it gets him like boom, right under his chin. I mean, he's hurting. So he starts jumping up and down like, it got me. And I think he like bit his lip. So his mouth's bleeding. I mean, it wasn't from the ball. Like he bit his lip because it bumped him like from up, got him up and he bit his lip or bit his tongue or something. So he's bleeding. Well, he's jumping around. Okay. So, I mean, he's like really in pain. But the thing is, the iron mic machine doesn't know he just got drilled and the thing is still on. So he's hopping around like jumping around. I'm like, Ryan, dude, you're still on home plate. Get out of the cage. Whew. Another one comes in. Boom, drills him right in the back. So he got hit twice. And at this point, he's like He's like, "Ah," like he got shot, like a sniper just took him out. So I did at this point jump in and like grabbed him. Like I go in like seriously, like there was a sniper and like crawl in so I don't get hit. I'm like in the right-hander's batting box and just grab him and try to pull him out before another ball comes whizzing in. It was the craziest thing ever. So they have batting cages. We spend a lot of time in the cages. And my baseball teams would go up there. We rent out the cage for hours and have a good time. Besides that, at our putt putt, we had we had go-karts. There was a go-kart track. Now it was just an oval. It wasn't like anything super fancy, and the cars were not like they didn't look like NASCARs or anything. They were just plain old go-karts. You just sat in them. They had like lawnmower engines. Like you just the person working would just pull the thing like you'd start a lawnmower. But I would drive those things around that oval until it ran out of gas. And then I'd take it in, get a different one. They put gas in it, and then I'd just take out a new one and I'd drive them. And then it was because I mean, I don't know if it was like this for everybody, but for a kid in the Midwest, all you want to do was drive when you were 12. You just wanted to drive anything. Didn't matter. Lawnmower, golf cart, didn't matter. He just wanted to drive, and I just drive the heck out of those things. So we drive golf carts. Another thing this place had was an arcade and a snack bar. Now the arcade at the Putt Putt was in basically like a mobile trailer, kind of like a mobile home, like a double wide. So it was just kind of parked in this corner of the parking lot, but it had video games. I didn't spend a lot of time in there because you didn't get free video games because obviously you had to put quarters in there. My dad wouldn't give me a lot of money for video games, but it did have that. And eventually, I'd save some money and get to play a couple of video games. So we did that. But the biggest thing that this place had that everybody really liked, and I still can't believe they had. I was talking about this with my wife as we were driving home on Sunday and I said, I miss this because you would see it from the highway. Our putt putt had the big slide. I mean, it had I think it was like 4 stories tall. It was a big slide and it had like 10 lanes. And you would go down the slide in like on a gunny sack, like a potato sack. You would carry it up all these steps. You would go up to the top, and it had about again like 10 lanes. It was all different color, kind of vibrant colors. And you would sit down. You could race your friends, and at the bottom there was carpet, and that's how you would stop. And you would just go up and down, up and down. You just ride the slide, and it was kind of like the slides at it's either Blizzard Beach or Typhoon Lagoon, like the water slides. It was very much like that, but it wasn't on water. You just get on a potato sack and you go down it. But this was kind of like, and this was in Hazelwood, which was adjacent to Florissant. So it was 5 minutes from our house. And I can't tell you how much time I spent here as a kid. And it was one of those things. I think I've mentioned this on the show many times. We didn't go on a lot of vacations as a kid. Actually, we didn't go on any vacations as a kid. We went on one vacation to Walt Disney World for one half of a day because we went to spring training with my dad's friend who pitched for the Phillies. He flew us down so we could drive his van to Philadelphia after spring training. So we never really went on vacation. So when you got to do things like putt putt or to go to Six Flags or just small things like that, the skating rink, things like that, they were a big deal and they left a big impression on me. But this was an official putt putt center. It wasn't later on as the putt putt went away. You had these other miniature golf and entertainment kind of complexes come on, but nothing ever to me met the fun factor that the putt putt came with. I love the aesthetic of it. I loved how the lamps were all around the golf course. The four 18-hole golf courses, the lamps had a certain look to them. It was very uniform. The orange trim, the green carpets, the shapes of the lamps, the way the putters looked, the stand where you got your putters and your ball all kind of in the center of the complex. Just how the rock work all around the complex, the fencing all around the place. It was just a very, very cool aesthetic, and it screams 70s and 80s when you look back at it. But that's kind of a memory that I have from my childhood, the old Putt Putt Center. So did you have a Putt Putt Center? Did you have one in your town? Because it was a franchise. And did you spend time there? So give me some feedback. Patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. We'll be back again next week talking about another fun memory. But until then, I hope you have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon. up here in the Midwest. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 85 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the